Hi everyone. Happy summer. We are into summer and happy Pride Month. Apologize for my silence for the last little bit. Um, this visit with my mom I had more trouble bouncing back from than usual. Uh, I oftentimes feel like it's hard to have a sense of myself as an autonomous being with my mom, and so sometimes it takes a little time to kind of come back into myself and find myself and feel where I am. And this time was especially challenging in that. So I want to talk a little bit about support. Um, and so the first example of support is with my housemate, who's also a therapist. And so when I came back from California, then I was feeling pretty unsafe and shut down and defended. As I mentioned on my last video, I had a lot of past trauma stuff that got stirred up for me. So with my mom, then there's kind of three areas of that. So I spent most of my life feeling really terrified of her. There's a lot of explosive anger when I was growing up. That was very impactful for me since I was a sensitive kid. And so I spent much of my life feeling afraid of anger, other people's anger, her anger, and my own anger, feeling very shut down and detached from my own vitality as a result. Um, and also some of the sadness from wanting to emotionally connect with my mom from growing up. And she just doesn't really have such a good ability to do that. My areas of interest in life have been in the emotional realm and the spiritual realm, and those are pretty much the opposite of my mom. So she's very good in the material plane, and shows people that she loves them by buying things for them, for instance. And so it was very challenging as an emotional kid growing up with her and wanting to emotionally connect, and just having a lot of experiences of her rejecting that and not being able to participate and feeling isolated and alone in that. And the third was, what I just mentioned about having a difficult time feeling like I get to be an autonomous person around her and not just an extension of her. So I feel very happy over the course of my life that I have really dramatically healed the first one. And so I did a lot of work on my own anger and my relationship with my mom. So, for the last decade or so, I just haven't felt afraid of her or other people's anger. And also the emotional connection aspect has really healed a lot as well, especially with my mom's Parkinson's. It's really forced her to be much more present than she has been in the past. And so it's been really lovely and shocking to me that I feel like, we really do have a friendship now at this point, something that I never could have really imagined for myself, and that I really do enjoy her company and spending time with her, that we are able to talk about things and to be close. It's been very satisfying. So I feel, very thrilled that, two of those huge areas of my life have really healed pretty much 100%. And so it's just the third one of being able to stay in my body and stay in my sense of self that is still sometimes challenging for me. And this past trip, definitely a lot of that got activated. So I was coming back into myself, returning home. And so, my housemates, we had a really lovely connection just kind of sitting out on the back patio. And she did a really great job of listening and really seeing and hearing me and really being able to identify with where I was struggling. And it really brought me to tears. And I just felt myself letting my guard down and really coming back into myself and opening my heart again. And it felt really, really lovely because, it feels very painful to feel, guarded and defensive and closed and unsafe. Really, all of our efforts to protect ourselves tend to keep us away from the love that we're actually dearly wanting. And so, that was one example of support that's kind of conventional, idea of support, especially in marginalized communities. That how we love and support one another is really listening to each other and really hearing and believing each other's struggles and pain, and really giving each other sympathy for that. And so, at the right time, this kind of support can truly, truly be life-saving. And so I don't want to minimize that. And I also want to talk about a couple other forms of support that are a little bit more counterintuitive. And so I want to talk about two people who are actually really instrumental in my path of leadership, and in ways that were a little bit unexpected, but two people that I feel hugely, hugely grateful to, and that I really wouldn't be the person that I am without them. And so the first was one of the coaches in a leadership program that I did a while back. And we had a little bit of a misunderstanding, conflict, specifically around me being trans. And so I did, what I had done in the past, which, many trans people do, which is, try to explain to her the ways that it did not feel supportive to me as a trans person, the interactions that we had, and to really do, what I just mentioned, to try to get her to see, my experience and my pain, and to acknowledge that, and to hear me, and to change her behavior. And much to my surprise, her response was, when you feel ready to take 100% responsibility for your life, let me know. And I was really shocked and really outraged. It felt incredibly insensitive to me. It actually felt really hugely transphobic, and I was just really, really outraged. And so, I did what most people do. Reached out to my loved ones. I was like, "You'll never believe what happened to me. This already felt bad, and now it feels 1,000 times worse." And I was just fuming and hurt and just really, really upset for about a week. And then, when I really reflected upon what she said, then I realized, like, wow, she is really right. There's ways that I was not taking responsibility for my life and for my own happiness, and that I was trying to get other people to see my pain and to fix it for me. And, I really just came face to face with, my life is really for me. It's about me. Like, there's nobody else that's going to do it for me. And so if I want to have a different experience in life, then I need to create a different experience in life. And I have the capacity to do that. And so I really took her words to heart, and it just really dramatically changed my whole approach to my life. It really allowed me to step into my own leadership in ways that I previously had felt really held back. And so I felt like that was really actually a huge gift. It was a really huge favor, what she said to me, that felt really hugely hurtful and insensitive at the time. That actually was really actually profound. And my other experience was a friend who, around a similar time in my life, which I was also having a lot of challenges around being trans, and having a lot of my own kind of landmines in that experience, really exploding in my face and feeling a lot of invisibility and a lot of ways that I was not being seen as the person that I am, and a lot of feelings of isolation and hurt and victimization as a result. And so, especially since she was somebody that I considered to be a friend, then I would oftentimes, reach out to her for support and she was not trans, and try to explain to her about what my life was like as a trans person, and some of the challenges that I was facing, and some of the emotional impact on them. And similar to my previous experience, I really expected her, to really listen and to really feel sympathetic, and to, kind of extend her support in my direction in the ways that I felt like I really needed it. And much to my surprise, she did not do that. In fact, she had kind of the opposite response, where anytime I was in that state, which I have described as kind of my wounded kid, which was my kind of go-to persona at the time, especially when I was trying to get love and attention in the world. Anytime that I showed up in that energy, she basically just would really have nothing to do with me. And I also, usually insensitive and rude and not a very good friend, and also transphobic because I felt like, she was expressing her privilege as a cisgender person of just, not really engaging with my pain and struggle of being trans in the world. And it felt really hurtful, and I really doubted our friendship for quite a long time. Um, and again, kind of when I reflected on it later, from all of my frustrated attempts to try to connect with her in this way that were just hugely unsuccessful, um, I really came to feel so incredibly grateful that, she really demanded for me to interact with her that I be in my power and in my wholeness. And she really saw me as a powerful person in ways that I just did not see myself. And so her having that high standard and expecting me to show up in my best self instead of allowing me to show up in my wounded kid self, um, by not giving me pity and sympathy when I was in that. She really got me out of the habit of approaching life and people that way, and really allowed me to step into my power and step into my leadership in a much more consistent way, and to really be able to move out of my wounded kid persona um, that I had been carrying around with me for decades into something that was much more empowering. And she really helped me to see that, my whole understanding of friendship as, a place where you bring all of your wounds and struggles and challenges and hurts in life. Um, that that was not actually necessarily a very empowered vision of friendship. Like I thought of this as authenticity, when you share all of your pain and your struggles with people. And she really helped me to see that, that was actually a somewhat disempowering way of approaching myself and a way of approaching life. And that the more that I was focusing on that, and the more that I was getting positive attention from people in that way, the more that it was really keeping me stuck in my life. And so her refusing to engage with me in that way actually just was hugely transformative and just really a huge, huge favor. And I really feel a deep appreciation for her as a friend, for having the courage and the conviction to be able to maintain that with me instead of giving me what I felt like I wanted, which would have been, an easier path for her and also for me. And so I just wanted to share that. And also, if you are struggling and wanting not only somebody to kind of listen and identify and, be with you in your pain, but also somebody who loves you enough to really hold you in your highest self, and really to want the best for your life and to not allow you to settle for less than best and less than your highest expression of your own power and your own leadership, then reach out and let me know. So hope that you have some fun Pride festivities planned for this month. And my choir is performing next week at the Melodies of Pride event for Denver, which I'm excited about. We haven't performed at Pride before. And so I hope that you have a great week, and I will check in with you again soon.